Imagine a land stretching further than you can see, mountains clawing at the sky, rice paddies shimmering under the sun, villages nestled in valleys. This is ancient China, a civilization that profoundly shaped our world. But what was life really like for those who lived here? What challenges did they face, and what triumphs did they celebrate? Let's journey back thousands of years to uncover the secrets of this remarkable empire. Our story unfolds during the Han Dynasty, a golden age for China, lasting from 206 BC to 220 AD. Think of it as their Roman Empire, a time of incredible innovation, expansion, and cultural flourishing. It was a period when Confucianism truly took hold, shaping family life and government alike. But just how significant was this era? The Han Empire wasn't confined to one place. It was vast, stretching across modern-day China and beyond. Imagine a network of trade routes connecting bustling cities with far-flung villages, exchanging goods and ideas. This incredible reach meant cultures collided, creating a vibrant tapestry of traditions. But how did they manage such an enormous territory? Meet Li Wei. He's just one person among millions, but his life embodies the struggles and resilience of ordinary people in Han China. Every day begins before sunrise for him. A farmer's work is never done. What does it take to feed an empire? Before the sun fully crests the horizon, Li Wei's family gathers for morning rituals, honoring their ancestors. They believe that maintaining harmony with those who came before is essential for a good life. Why did they place so much importance on ancestor veneration? Look closely, you'll notice an intricate network crisscrossing the landscape. This isn't just some natural feature. It's a sophisticated irrigation system, a testament to Han China's advanced engineering skills. Without this, Li Wei's village simply couldn't survive. How did they manage such impressive feats of construction? Life wasn't easy for Li Wei or his family. A significant portion of their harvest went to the imperial government in the form of taxes. It meant barely enough food was left for them. Sometimes, taxes are heavy this year, his father laments, echoing a common sentiment across the land. What did these taxes pay for? Far away from Li Wei's fields, in the magnificent capital city of Chang'an, court officials are meticulously tracking those very tax payments. It's a world of privilege and power, a stark contrast to rural life. What did this system of taxation enable? But the taxes weren't all for nothing. They helped fund incredible industries, like silk production. This wasn't just fabric, it was currency. The demand for Chinese silk stretched across continents, bringing wealth and power to the empire. But crafting this luxurious material demanded painstaking labor. What exactly goes into making a single bolt of silk, and where did that silk go? To bustling marketplaces like this one, a vibrant hub of commerce. Merchants argue over prices, haggling for the finest jade ornaments, spices and pottery, all contributing to China's thriving economy. But who truly benefited from all this trade? The empire's strength wasn't merely in its riches, it resided within its legions. Constant vigilance along those vast borders was essential. Can these soldiers truly hold back the relentless tide of nomadic warriors? They train relentlessly, mastering both crossbow and sword, a grim necessity for survival. The northern tribes were always testing their defenses, probing for weakness. Maintaining order demanded overwhelming force, a constant reminder of the precarious peace. News traveled slowly in those times, but its arrival could shake an empire. A messenger bursts into the imperial palace, his face etched with urgency. What news does he carry that demands such haste? It's word of unrest along the northern frontier, a simmering rebellion threatening to boil over. This immediately demanded the emperor's attention. A crisis was brewing. The emperor's council chamber, a place for weighty decisions. Surrounded by scholars and generals, he grapples with how to quell this growing threat. But are external forces the only problem? Their discussion reveals a simmering undercurrent of political tension within the court itself. Ambitions clash, alliances shift. Who truly wants what's best for the empire? The news from the north didn't just affect emperors and generals, it touched every corner of society. Li Wei's village, like countless others, is summoned to provide grain for the army. This meant a heavier burden on already strained shoulders. Their harvests were barely enough to feed themselves. The demand for resources was insatiable. How are these officials chosen? What qualities do they possess that make them fit to govern? A traveling scholar explains the civil service examinations, a system meant to select the most capable men. But is it truly meritocratic, or simply another path for the privileged few? This seemingly open system offered a chance at prestige. Years of relentless study, that's what it takes to succeed in these exams. Young men across the empire dedicate their lives to mastering ancient texts. Their success depends on meticulous memorization and careful interpretation. Decades of Confucian classics committed to memory. Can they truly absorb such vast knowledge? Formal education was largely denied to women, But that didn't stop some from seeking knowledge. A young woman secretly learns calligraphy from her father, practicing in the shadows. She whispers, "I want to be more than just a wife." Her quiet defiance is a spark of hope, a yearning for something beyond societal expectations. Stretching as far as the eye can see, the Great Wall. Construction continues relentlessly along the northern border, a colossal undertaking meant to protect the empire from invasion. It's a symbol of power and determination. But at what cost? The sheer scale of the project is staggering. Diplomacy, sometimes more powerful than any army. An envoy from a neighboring kingdom arrives in Chang'an seeking trade negotiations. Maintaining peace and prosperity requires more than just military might. It demands skillful negotiation and careful diplomacy. Can they reach an agreement? The rituals surrounding these diplomatic exchanges are elaborate, a carefully choreographed display of power and respect. These ceremonies reinforce the emperor's authority, projecting an image of strength and stability. But beneath the surface, what truly transpires? Is it genuine goodwill or a calculated maneuver? The harvest was meager again. Li Wei watched his children's faces, hollowed with hunger. Grain demands from the empire had become relentless, squeezing every last kernel from their fields. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It felt like a slow starvation. How will we eat? The question echoed in his mind, laced with desperate fear that threatened to consume him. How is Confucianism? In the bustling district town, Magistrate Zhao felt the tremor of unease. Rumors whispered through the marketplace, stories of officials diverting grain intended for the imperial stores into their own coffers. Such corruption undermined everything. It wasn't just illegal, it was dangerous, fueling resentment and instability amongst the peasantry. He knew an investigation was necessary, but uncovering the truth would be perilous. A breakthrough arrived in the form of Master Lin, meticulously demonstrating his new technique for making paper. He discovered how to process plant fibers, mulberry bark and bamboo, into a thin, pliable sheet. Suddenly, writing wasn't confined to the wealthy elite anymore. The cost plummeted, and with it, literacy began to slowly spread like wildfire through society. It was more than just cheaper scrolls, it was access to knowledge. News from the northern frontier arrived in Chang'an, reports of skirmishes escalating into full-blown conflict with nomadic tribes. The emperor, already burdened by anxieties about internal unrest, reacted swiftly. More troops were dispatched, resources diverted, and taxes increased to fund the war effort. A vicious cycle had begun. Problems at one end only exacerbated tensions at the other. Li Wei witnessed something unexpected. A farmer openly refusing to surrender his meager harvest to the tax collectors. It was a small act, quickly silenced, but it resonated deeply within the village. A spark of defiance ignited in Li Wei's heart. Could things change? Was there a way to resist this relentless oppression without succumbing entirely? The memory of that defiance lingered. Li Wei couldn't stand by while his neighbors starved. He began secretly sharing small portions of grain, knowing the consequences if discovered would be severe. It was a dangerous gamble, risking imperial punishment to offer a sliver of hope in a world of despair. Each handful felt like an act of rebellion. Magistrate Xiao's investigation took a dramatic turn. He uncovered irrefutable evidence, meticulously recorded transactions, implicating Lord Bao, a high-ranking imperial official, in large-scale embezzlement of grain stores. The revelation sent shockwaves through the court, breeding fear and suspicion amongst those who held power. Who would be next? Li Wei's quiet generosity didn't go unnoticed. Whispers spread through the village, tales of a man sharing his meager bounty with those less fortunate. Morale improved, hope flickered brighter, but it also drew unwanted attention. The imperial tax collectors began to scrutinize Li Wei and his family more closely. Their movements were watched. Master Lin's invention wasn't just changing literacy, it was transforming communication. Simple pamphlets began to appear, folk tales transcribed onto paper, and increasingly rudimentary commentaries on current events. A nascent form of public discourse was emerging, a whisper of dissent finding its voice through the written word. The seeds of change were being sown. The emperor, increasingly isolated by fear and paranoia, reacted with predictable severity. Grain quotas were increased again, pushing families to the brink of starvation. Surveillance intensified, spies infiltrated villages, informants reported on even the slightest hint of dissent. The empire's grip tightened, crushing hope beneath an iron heel. The accusations struck Li Wei's family like a blow. For generations they'd been hard-working farmers, but suddenly branded as hoarders, accused of hiding grain from the people. Menu from men. It was a blatant lie designed to squeeze them dry. He had to defend himself publicly, before the village elders and the watchful eyes of the tax collectors. Shame burned on his face. He knew this wasn't just about him anymore. The magistrate, a man of integrity, felt the weight of what he'd uncovered. He was acutely aware of his precarious position. Exposing that corrupt official had made him enemies. He couldn't risk Li Wei suffering the same fate. So when night fell, a trusted messenger slipped a warning to Li Wei. They plan to frame you for something worse. It was a desperate plea, an attempt to buy time. The invention of paper quietly revolutionized communication. Simple messages weren't confined to official channels anymore. They could be copied and shared easily. Stories of hardship, once whispered in hushed tones, now found their way onto scraps of paper. Grievances against the tax collectors, accounts of empty stomachs. This spread awareness. It fostered empathy and discontent. What if we refused? Li Wei asked, his voice barely audible at first. But then it grew stronger, fueled by the shared desperation of his neighbors. It was a small act, really, a refusal to surrender more grain than they could afford. Yet, in that moment, something shifted. A spark of collective defiance ignited among the villagers. Could this tiny flame grow into something bigger? The corrupt official, sensing the tide turning against him, panicked. Matuid Hiswid, the magistrate's investigation was digging too deep, and Li Wei's growing popularity threatened his power. He needed a scapegoat, someone to take the blame for the unrest. So he fabricated charges, treasonous correspondence with enemies of the emperor. It was a desperate gamble, but a dangerous one. The public hearing was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Li Wei stood accused of inciting rebellion, a charge that could mean death. He spoke passionately, not for himself, but for his people, describing their hunger, their exhaustion, their quiet despair. Every word resonated, each syllable hung heavy in the silence. Would it be enough? Just when it seemed all hope was lost, a figure stepped forward, an artisan who'd worked alongside Li Wei's family. He presented meticulously documented evidence, records of falsified grain inventories, bribes paid to tax collectors, and the officials' deliberate manipulation of the system. It was undeniable proof, a crucial piece of information that shattered the illusion of justice. The magistrate, emboldened by the artisan's testimony, produced his own documents, official records confirming the corrupt official's crimes. The evidence was irrefutable. It exposed years of deceit and undermined his authority completely. A hush fell over the crowd as the truth finally surfaced, a moment etched in time. A collective roar erupted from the crowd, a mixture of anger at years of oppression and a glimmer of hope for a better future. The corrupt official's downfall wasn't just about one man, it was a symbolic victory, a testament to the power of truth and defiance. One manful, it felt as if the balance of power had subtly, irrevocably shifted. News of the events reached the emperor himself, reports detailing widespread discontent and corruption within the tax system. He couldn't ignore it any longer, so he issued an unprecedented decree, a full inquiry into the entire system, a concession from above. But what did this mean for Li Wei, and would true change ever come? The charges against Li Wei were dropped, but he sensed a shift. His defiance, however small, had unsettled those in power. He felt their scrutiny, a constant and heavy presence. It wasn't victory so much as a fragile truce. The whispers hadn't ceased, they'd simply changed tone, laced with veiled warnings and thinly disguised threats. He understood. The true danger might not be behind him, but lurking just ahead. News of Li Wei's stand, and his subsequent exoneration, spread like wildfire. It ignited a quiet rebellion. Someone, likely a neighbor, began using accessible paper to create pamphlets detailing the events. They weren't calls for violence, but simple statements of fact, reminders that even ordinary people deserved fairness. Soon those leaflets appeared in other villages, sparking similar acts of resistance and creating a ripple effect. The emperor, receiving reports of the growing unrest, couldn't ignore it entirely. He implemented minor reforms, small tax reductions for some regions and promises of fairer grain distribution, but these were merely bandages on a deeper wound. The fundamental imbalance of power remained untouched. It was a partial victory, yes, but one that left many feeling more frustrated than relieved. A moment of hope quickly followed by stark reality. Li Wei, understanding their reliance on imperial grain made them vulnerable, rallied his neighbors. They began planting drought-resistant crops, hardy varieties of millet and sorghum that could thrive even when the rains failed. It wasn't an act of defiance so much as survival, a quiet assertion of self-sufficiency. Each harvest meant less dependence on imperial demands and more control over their own lives. But how would future generations understand what had transpired? How would they remember the struggles and sacrifices made for even this small measure of relief? An artisan, inspired by Li Wei's actions, started a project meticulously documenting the stories of ordinary people caught in the grip of the tax system. He used paper, now readily available thanks to workshops, creating a permanent record of their lives and hardships, whose voices will be heard when we're gone. Recognizing the need for a fresh approach, the emperor appointed a new magistrate to oversee grain collection in Li Wei's region. This one was instructed, explicitly, to implement fairer policies and show compassion. It wasn't a guarantee of change, but it offered a glimmer of hope, a chance for things to be different. Could this man truly break with tradition? Li Wei watched as the new magistrate arrived, his heart filled with both hope and apprehension. He knew change came slowly and often faltered, but even small acts, an individual standing up to injustice, a community supporting each other, could have a profound impact. It wasn't about grand revolutions. It was about chipping away at the foundations of oppression, one stone at a time. What lessons can we learn from this? And now children were learning to read from affordable paper books, stories of heroes, poems about nature, and even simple explanations of history. This wasn't just about literacy, it was about empowerment. Knowledge is power, and access to knowledge could transform a society. What kind of future are we building for the next generation? The reports kept coming, detailing continued unrest, albeit at a lower intensity. The emperor received them with a frown. While the immediate crisis had subsided, he realized deeper reforms were necessary to maintain stability and prevent another uprising. He understood, this was not over, it was merely paused. How much longer must we wait? Li Wei stood overlooking his village, a sense of cautious optimism filling him. The fight for justice was far from over. More challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, but he knew something had changed. An awareness had been sparked. A seed of defiance planted, and that was enough to give him hope for the future. The seeds of change have been sown.